I don't know what's going on. Oh, there it goes. Hey, everybody. I just had a quick commentary with Dr. Linny Time, who's a PhD chemist. And so I had some chemistry questions about some products. So I have a friend of mine who, a friend of his, gave him a zinc elixir, but he was trying to call it colloidal. So I just needed to get my term straight too. He was calling it colloidal zinc. And the thing that got me confused was that if it was a colloidal zinc, it would be just clear water, but it's supposedly distilled water with zinc in the bottom. And that supposedly the recommendation was that you pour off the clear water, and use that and then put more distilled on top of the zinc, which wouldn't make it a colloidal, because I think a colloidal has to have like an electrical component, doesn't it?
Well, the idea of what a colloid is when I was in school was that colloids were gel solutions, and that what would happen is whatever was dissolved to make the colloidal mixture would disperse itself amongst the water in order to be a gel. And this gel had properties of a thick water, so to speak. But the colloidal silver that you make is certainly not in a colorless solution. You can see the particles, and as you get bigger and bigger colloids, it looks like little spots of dirt that are floating in the water. But you can easily see where the water gelifies to disperse whatever's in it. And if Ormus gold gets old, it goes to colloidal gold, which I found was really interesting. But the colloidal gold is a good healing agent also. Ormus is... All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so, okay, explain what an ormus is.
An ormus is an orbitally rearranged monoatomic element, usually gold. And gold ormus is a healing agent that works amazingly well topically on burns and cuts and scrapes. And by being a monoatomic element, it's a single gold atom. And gold is so much bigger than water and bigger than most elements on a biological scale that it gets in there and it provides catalytic surface with no charge. And so the Ormus gold, I used to get mine from Sun Foods, and I learned how to make it from the guy who made it for Sun Foods when it was owned by David Wolf back in the 2000s. And if you can get good Ormus, you don't need very many other topical medicinals, because it just seals up cuts, takes away pain, makes stings less painful. It does a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, you gave me a jar. It was really helpful because I ended up using it on Jen, because we went up into Northern California and she got majorly eaten by ticks, but then she had something that, nobody had even seen, even vets. And I called them doggy chicken pox, because they were, nodule about the size of a chicken pox nodule. And they were like all over her skin. And so you could feel them. And so I felt like she was having a histamine, you know what I mean? Like a histamine issue, or kind of like doggy hives maybe. So, I couldn't find anything, and vets had no idea what to do. They wanted to give her antibiotics, and I wasn't into that. But I had that little jar of the Ormus gold that you gave me, and I actually gave her drops of it every day, and then I put the stuff on her little lumps, and they would just the whole problem went away, and it went away really good, where it built her immune system up.
If you still have a little bit of it left, dilute it in water. It works like homeopathically.
Oh, yeah.
So that at low concentrations, the gold is still effective as a catalyst. But to get back to colloids, when the Ormus gold goes back into a form that's normal chemistry to become a gold ion or a gold atom, it instead of just it clusters, but then this colloidal property is where the water holds it so that there's a repulsion, so the atoms spread out. And so you get more gel properties from a colloid. So it goes through membranes a little easier because the colloid is like a membrane itself. And depending on what the element is what the properties of the colloid give. So colloids are nothing to be afraid of. They're just, as I said, gel solutions of mostly water that aligns molecules and keeps them in a separate form rather than clusters. But the colloids are low-level clusters. Big level clusters tend to be precipitates because they're heavier than water and they'll settle out. So the zinc in that colloid you were talking about, if there's more zinc than the weight can hold, then it becomes a precipitate and it's no longer a colloid.
Okay, so we've got an ormus, colloids, and a
Ormus,
precipitate.
ormus is monoatomic. Colloids are multiply atomic. They're like a cluster with a lot of different sites of these ions that they hold.
And what was the other one? The precipitous or precipitate?
A precipitate is just something that settles out of the solution. If you
Okay.
have saturated solution, it's how you know it's saturated is because the precipitate won't dissolve anymore.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I can see some different things here. One, you can do overkill on your preparation. Your preparation being your ormus, colloidal, or precipitate, because you don't want to oversaturate it, right? So,
Oh, I
and do
use
you?
minimal amounts because it's so valuable and minimal amounts work.
Okay,
So if
so
I use more than a drop, I'm amazed.
so I know with silver, it has like a little bit of an electrical charge when you put it in the colloidal. And also, I want to let people know there's this word that's showing up a lot that people may not know, and it's called a hydrosol. For example, hold on one second.
A hydrosol, which is
I buy,
actually what I referred to as a gel.
well, the hydrosol is actually distilled water, but it comes directly from your own distillment. You don't buy it. Because we use a lot of, it's really hard to make essential oils, right? You need tons of volume of plant. So a lot of us herbalists use the water that's left over, which is a hydrosol, because the plant material is also embedded in the distilled water, which is the hydrosol. So hydrosol is like your own distilling.
Okay, so in essence, the hydrosol is water with wiped memory that you can program
Yep,
into whatever you homeopathically dilute it with.
right.
Or
And you can
you don't
even,
homeopathic, you make your solution, then you dilute it homeopathically.
right. Okay, so I buy I prefer colloidal silvers that are hydrosol. You know, hydrosol, which is the same as saying distilled. It's just that you made the distillment yourself. You didn't actually buy
I
it.
like it even better. Why don't you get a battery, a couple wires, and two electrodes and
Yeah.
generate it when you want it?
Okay, so do you have to have the electrical component to make a colloidal, or does that only work with metals, not minerals?
You know, the electrical tends to mess with the organic chemistry, but with metal chemistry, it can't really mess with the metal chemistry. And electricity and magnetism are two big facets of material physical chemistry. And a lot of people don't understand physical chemistry. It's not one of the more popular studies because you don't make a lot of money studying the properties of things that already are. But material materially, ask the question again because I'm drifting.
Okay, so do you have to, okay, number one, do you have to use an electronic component to make a colloidal silver or colloidal gold or like a colloidal zinc? Or can you just, put it in a distilled water and allow it to sit and it will become colloidal? That's the first question.
Okay. The electrical potential of metals is such that they can sit in water, and if they're not soluble, they're not going to dissolve and you're not going to get any particles in it. And so you have to look at the electrical chemical potentials, and the electricity is to get those potentials going. And it really has to do with ionization. And electricity, magnetism, and ionization are all very much related and totally screwed up in how they teach people about it. And so I'd go back to the works of Walter Russell to see the relationship of electricity and magnetism. And then with ions, which are called salts or cations and anions, what happens is when they dissolve in water, they become ionized. They can carry electricity. The electricity that we use makes it jump, but if you make the colloidal silver by zapping it with electricity and having it ionized to make silver ions, you get silver ions that are in the +1 state and silver ions that are in the +2 state. And these form together into these colloids, and that's the colloidal silver. Silver is one of the best antioxidants out there, and colloidal silver is great for healing because it bottles up the oxidation. Oxidation is when a metal loses its electrons. Reduction is when something takes those electrons from the metal. And so what typically happens is that metals oxidize and organic compounds reduce. And so the metals in biological systems, which are the 12 mineral salts that are in your blood, those are very important in the regulation of the biology that we undergo as living species. And yet everybody thinks it's just organic chemistry or carbon that's important.
Okay, so a big thing I gleaned from what you just said, so basically like a colloidal silver, I mean, may have like antimicrobial and antibacterial benefits, in case you get sick using it for that. But mostly it's an antioxidation. So what it does is it stops whatever free stuff is going on in your body from breaking down or oxidizing your cells, right? So that's how it's restoring you more so than
oxidation and reduction happen all the time. And in fact, they happen at rates of like 10, anywhere from 10 to the third to 10 to the 10th, which is over 1 billion times per second. But I don't believe those numbers. That's just what they were taught to me when I rationalized out how biology works. Think of every cell as a human, and it can make decisions different from the cell next door, just like we can make decisions different from the human next door. And so cells behave as cells on cell scale the same way humans behave as humans on human scale. So what's good for one cell might not be good for another cell. But oxidation tends to break down things, and oxygen provides our living oxidative environment. And so what we're doing with an antioxidant like colloidal silver or vitamin C is we're controlling easy to get oxidants that by making them work and use themselves up, and it reduces the oxidative pressure on the biological system.
Okay, so I've got a couple other, so you could take a mineral and put it in like a distilled water or hydrostilled water, and it would become a colloidal like say zinc, right? Because it's not a metal.
You cannot just put it in water and expect it to do it, but there are chemistry methods that are tried and true that can make colloidal
Zinc.
metals.
Okay. So, but I mean, like if somebody was saying, hey, I made this in distilled water and there's this, say the jar is like this big and it's thin, but there's like this much white stuff or supposed zinc at the bottom, that's not going to create a colloidal zinc. And you're not going to be able to create a homeopathic remedy off of it
No,
later.
no, that's not true. The white powder at the bottom is just oxidized zinc that's precipitated, but the solution can hold its colloidal stuff. The stuff that's precipitated is not colloidal, but the solution is what's colloidal.
Right, right, right. So, but you could do that with like something like zinc without having to electrically charge it like you would
I
silver.
don't think so. No, I think you have to The idea of electrically charging it is to get the ions flowing and juiced up.
Okay, so
There
you're
are
saying that,
chemical ways of doing it, but it depends. I mean, obviously, I don't juice the colloidal gold that comes from the ormus. The ormus produces the colloidal gold as a byproduct of its own breakdown. But the colloidal silver, you slap two electrodes into an acid solution, and it's worth looking up, not just using
yeah,
any
yeah.
acid
Well,
solution, but it's reasonably easy to take a silver coin, put it in a solution and make colloidal silver, and it does tarnish the coin.
yeah. So, I mean, but what I'm trying to figure out is that, I'm trying to figure out if it has any, I guess, value. And, with the zinc, do you have to treat it or other minerals like zinc, magnesium, or whatever else? Would you actually have to charge them like you do silver in order to make them colloidal?
There are different ways of preparing things, and even though I'm a synthetic inorganic chemist, I'd still have to go and look up in a book how to do a prep of a certain material. But the idea of salts is that you've got ionized material that is dissolved in water. And so you don't need a colloid to have ions dissolved in water or blood or any other liquid. The colloidal nature of things is a process to put the material that you want into a form where it's effective. And without knowing any details of what they're doing with the colloidal zinc, I'm guessing that they're starting with zinc sulfate or zinc phosphate or something where the zinc is already ionized and will dissolve readily in solution.
Oh, okay.
It's not
So,
like you take a metal and you put it into water and it becomes a colloid on its way to ionizing.
right.
All that depends on your electrochemical potentials, and the air is an oxidizing environment.
Okay, so say you were going to make just a water hydrosol distilled water preparation with zinc. You weren't going to, you know,
I would
charge it.
have to look it up. I don't know off the top of my head, but
Uh,
I'm guessing if I was making it, I'd start with a zinc salt, not zinc metal.
okay, yep, that's exactly what I could you if could you on your own electrically charge a zinc metal into a solvent that would be a good remedy, homeopathic remedy? Or is it better to go with the more powdered or the broken down one or the salt part, the salt one?
If I had a laboratory where I could just make things that were made the way they're supposed to be made and know that they're good, I could provide a lot of good solutions. But anything you can get commercially, they're going to tell you what they need to make the sale. So who knows whether they're talking about anything that's correct? All I did was explain the chemistry of colloids, and I wasn't biased by having the conversation tell me where we were going. So I could just use my chemical intuition. But electrochemical potentials are there for every different element, and it tells you what it takes to get that element into its ionized form. And like there's different ionized forms of things. So like you can get iron 2, which is ferrous iron, or iron 3, which is ferric iron. And the oxidation potential difference between them is 0.11 electron volts. So it's real easy to go from iron 2 to iron 3, which is more stable. But it's also easy if you have iron 3 in solution to apply a little bit of voltage and get it back to iron 2. A lot of times that voltage is applied by a chemical reaction, but it's just, you could do it by electricity. Electrochemistry is a whole different field and it's quite fascinating.
Right. So there's just like, there's no basically, talking to you about this, there's no limitations on the type of medicines that you could make in chemistry, but, and you can do from metals or getting the salt parts and then, doing some kind of preparation. But I'm starting to notice I see a lot more of this that people are doing. And I wasn't so sure that zinc, I want to talk to you mostly about that zinc product that my friend was given by his friend that's supposedly making it, because I didn't know if it actually would do anything based on, what it was and how it was derived. So I wanted to make sure, and now it's even better because now I know that there would have been two types of zinc salts that could be used if you went and just put it in water without actually taking the metal part and giving it a charge. A solution.
There's a lot of different zinc salts. And
Are some of them safe or unsafe? Because a lot of people are leaning towards this because of the
if you wanted to use
cerveza
something
virus.
like zinc acetate would be great because it's based off acetic acid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sourcing where you're getting stuff is important, but if you look and read the labels on vitamins and minerals that you get, a lot of times it'll tell you where it's sourced. And if I have that information, I can evaluate whether it's in good form or not. But
Right.
they're basically looking to get you in the form of ions. And it's the same thing as electrolytes do.
Right. So the higher ion ratio does that make it better?
No. And in fact, aluminum has a 3 plus charge, and it's one of the worst things to get in your
Yeah.
biological system.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, this has been enlightening because I just wanted to, talk to you about it because I knew that you would know. And I haven't really ventured out. Obviously, when I get land and I can build a laboratory area, I want to be able to venture down that road and be able to move out and make more, homeopathic type medicines, using like chemistry in a good way. So I haven't really traveled down that road. So I just wanted to talk to you about, the zinc. And could you, since it has so much of that zinc on the bottom of that glass jar with the lid, um, you know, I guess you just keep filling it with like distilled water or hydrosol water and then pouring it off every so often until all the zinc in the bottom's gone. And then you could even, if the jar was empty, you could still even add a little water in there and make a homeopathic solution. Is that correct?
I'm thinking, yes, that as long as you keep recharging with distilled water, you're going to draw less and less zinc out of your solution. And eventually, when you've used up all the zinc, the hydrosol, the water from it will still have memory. So that's when you get into the homeopathic level of
Okay.
solutions.
Okay, so last thing, something just clicked in my little mind. I was making, but they call it a liposonomial. I think liposonomial, right? Which is the better vitamin C. It's more absorbic. I just realized I was basically colloiding it, right? I think But I was about 5 years ago, I was taking like absorbic acid, uh, sea crystals, and I was putting in organic lichen in a water, purified water, and I would put it in a jewelry cleanser, right? Cleaner, metal, stainless steel. And then I would turn it on a couple times, and supposedly it would make the vitamin C bind with the lichen in the water, and then it made it easier for your body to grab onto. It passed a lot of the digestion stuff. So that's kind of making a colloidal, wouldn't it be? Or is that a different concoction?
Where it's one of those things that the colloidal is the form that it takes in the solution that you're using. Once you've taken it into your body, the colloid disperses and you get the ion that you need, which then goes to the right place. And your body has 12 essential ions that it must have, including calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, iron. Anyway, I don't want to get into
Right.
bionutrition right now, but they know what's going on there. And you can get, I'm pretty sure you can get colloidal forms, but once it gets into your body, the colloidal form is just like a delivery system.
Right, right. So it's, yeah, no, I like it because it's an energy delivery system, right? It's an energetic one, and that we're missing a lot of energetic, in our systems. So could you make, and so this is my last question, and I'll let you go, but so could you make colloidal, I know with this little jewelry box, as long as I had the vitamin, the organic lichen, and the purified water, um, I could make anything. And I could take powdered magnesium. I could take, what else was I doing that I was binding
Okay,
to the
when you say
lichen?
powdered magnesium, you're talking probably about mag sulfate, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's real important that you remember that that's already
Oh,
ionized and that
right.
it has
Okay.
nothing to do with the metal magnesium, which almost, if you find magnesium as a metal, it burns real bright. So you can light the end on fire and get like a sparkler.
Hmm.
But magnesium prefers to be an ion, a +2 ion, and if it's left out in the air, it'll oxidize right off.
Hmm.
And so don't confuse metals with metal ions, even though they have the same name. Thank your school system for confusing everybody.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm asking you some of these questions, because I think even a lot of people out in the public, like I'm going to post this, video, but a lot of people out in the public, they're messing around with a lot of things. And this is what I tell people with supplements and stuff. You're messing around, is it better to take like a vitamin C supplement or a multi-mineral than eat that Big Mac? Of course it is. But there's a lot of weird stuff that's going on in supplements. And other types of things, and then you have these people that are starting to branch out into creating their own colloidals, and maybe or these mixtures, maybe they don't really have enough information, and that you may be using something that's not good or beneficial, or you don't understand kind of the properties of it, and
Now you're
maybe
talking fear of chemistry.
I'm not
It's
talking
not
about
very,
fear. Okay, that's why I'm asking you today, because
yeah,
I want to make sure that I knew what was in the zinc solvent thing that my friend had, and now I have more questions that I can ask. Well, what kind of zinc is it? you know, what kind of,
yeah. If you sent me the label, I could have read it and answered all your questions.
well,
But
it's
thinking about
non-labeled.
it in theory is way better.
Yeah, it's non-labeled because the person's making it and gave it to my friend because they suspected my friend had COVID. So this guy made this zinc product in this water, and I wanted to make sure that the guy had some information who was making it because it didn't have a label, and they gave it to my friend, and my friend was like, do you think I should take it? And so it was just this glass jar that had this, white stuff at the bottom, supposedly distilled water filled the rest of it. The prescription from the guy to my friend was to, pour off the liquid water and use it for the colloidal zinc, and then just refill it with distilled water and put the lid back on and let it set. So, I just wanted to make sure, at least now I can go back to my friend and say, could you ask your friend who made it, what kind of zinc is it? Because I told him, I said, you probably shouldn't take anything like that unless you know exactly what it is. Because I
Yeah,
know in
what
nutrition
form
they
was
use,
the zinc in when you used it is the proper question.
yeah, no, that's what I'm going to ask because I don't know, and
And
I said,
if he says it was a zinc salt, ask him which salt.
yeah. So now I have, like a lot of other stuff, but I know that in the mainstream, even products that you may get to make things could be, not exactly what you think you were buying or you were getting. And so it's really important to ask questions so that you do spend your money in the right direction, buying like the right zinc that you would need for some kind of preparation like that. And just having, like more information. So that, yeah, so I'm kind of excited, now I have some chemistry. I have my own questions to ask back to know more about the situation. And this talking to you gives me a little bit more information in that nutritional side, right? That
Yeah,
natural antibiotic. Yeah.
the question of the form that he put it into to make it so that it's a hydrosol. I'll have to look up hydrosols because what I was talking about early on from the definition I knew is out of date compared to how they're using it.
Yeah, well, I mean, hydrosol is basically when I hydrosol something, I have a container that's a distill, right? It has a little copper wiring, so I'm distilling the water, but usually I put plant mass in the water. So say I'll put a whole bunch of rosemary in there with the water, and then I'll distill it off, and then sometimes you'll get like a couple drops of rosemary oil in another little area. But mostly it's just water. It's this hydrosol
So
water.
a hydrosol is not a colloid.
Well, it's basically distilled water because if you don't add any product to it, then it just becomes like a water, a distilled water. So that's kind of a
So
hydrosol.
why would you think it's a colloid instead of a solution?
Well, that's what I'm asking is that if this zinc powder salt is just in the bottom of the jar and the guy put distilled water on it or hydrosol water on it and put it in a jar and just set it on a counter, what does that make that? And does it need a charge in order to be a colloidal to release ions? Does it have any
Okay.
ions?
Okay. It does have ions, and what he's probably got is a salt of zinc of known solubility. And by using distilled water, you're making a saturated solution of the zinc.
Okay.
What the compound that he's using is, the zinc is going to be zinc. The question is what the counter ion is with the zinc. But the fact that it's a white powder on the bottom tells me it's a zinc salt because zinc as a metal is silver and not soluble in water. So we know he's starting with a salt, he's making a solution. What hydrosol and colloid have to do with it, I have no idea yet.
Right. Okay, well, that's what I was asking because I didn't really think that it would be a colloidal. That was my first, when my friend was asking me my thoughts about it, I said, well, I don't think that just
No, it's
looking
probably
at
a
it,
standard solution.
yeah, it's a solution. Okay, well, so then would that solution be beneficial? Would it be more beneficial than you taking zinc for, say, a virus or, the bacteria? Would it be
That depends on what the prep is. And
right?
without knowing what the guy did, I can't. The only
Right.
way I could evaluate that is by having some and seeing how it did compared to other stuff that I had.
Right. Okay. So if you were going to make a zinc colloidal preparation, how would you go about it, and what product?
I would go to a textbook and look up what the standard prep for it is and follow the directions.
Okay.
But as a chemist, I don't know what the preps are. And there are libraries full of volumes on preparation of chemicals.
Right. Okay. So you would go to at least the library and look it up and not just take somebody's information at face value off the internet that may not know what they're talking about.
If you asked me to make it off the top, I would go to Beilstein or some other synthetic book that gave you the methods of prep for zinc compounds, figure out which one we wanted, and just reproduce that in my lab.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to know where a reference could be found for people if they want to go look. Just for people to be safe.
I wouldn't send them to the chemical literature. That's too specific. Gee, you don't want people messing with chemistry by looking up synthesis and doing things without having any background on chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
The people who are doing it probably know what they're doing. I can speculate on what they're doing because I know my chemistry, but for somebody who just wants to do this on their own, you're better off buying your supplements.
Right.
Or knowing enough chemistry to know what you want. Right. But zinc acetate or some sort of zinc with an organic-y sounding counterion would definitely, I mean, that's how they provide zinc supplements. There's all sorts of zinc supplements on the market. Each have different cations and different preps, which make them unique products.
Right. Okay. Well, I just kind of want to have this talk with you because my feeling about the jar of zinc product, we're not sure exactly what it is, some kind of something going on. But to my friend, as I said, I'm not sure that the person you got it from may know a lot about this kind of stuff, and that I, in particularly, wouldn't try the product because I wouldn't know exactly what's in it or what's been done to it. And that, that's how I felt about it. So I wanted to ask you about it because actually the person is Ryan who got it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to talk to Dr. Time about this situation, and I will get back to you and I will give you some thoughts on what it is, what it could be, and just kind of the whole conversation about it. Because, I with you, if you made it and you said, hey, this is really, some great, stuff, you should take it.
Well,
it'll help
what I did
you.
with the Ormus.
Right.
That's how I did the Ormus.
I wouldn't hesitate one iota, right? But other people are not involved with chemist people like yourself. A lot of people don't have really close friends who, are brilliant minds in chemistry. So a lot of people are making a lot of things that, even in being an alternative practitioner for 30 years, I even question, right? And if I question it, then I need to know more information about it so that I can make even just a better, like I would never take that, having known you and talking to you about chemistry and stuff and getting to understand it. Before I knew you, I would be like, hey, Ryan, well, let me try that stuff that guy gave you, knowing you and chemistry and just knowing more and knowing more about nutrition too. I think you should, err on the side of caution. And like you said, go get a supplement that has all the exact, ions that you want. So if you're going to get zinc, how many you can, get a specialty ion that, penetrates into here and does this exactly what it says that it does instead of messing around.
You should get your minerals from your food, not from supplements.
Exactly. That's my whole thing too. I mean, why take anything like that or have to make it unless you're seriously diseased that you couldn't get from growing your own food, right?
Yeah, you want to take vitamin C because we don't make our own vitamin C,
Yeah.
and it's kind of hard to grow oranges and lemons in Reno.
Yeah.
But there's certain things I take, certain things I don't take. But vitamin C is what I take as the first level antioxidant. And for minerals, I've just started using electrolytes because I'm sweating a lot of water out and I felt a little depleted. So I take magnesium because in moving and starting to do outdoor work, I'm using muscles that are different from the muscles I had been using, and some are starting to cramp. So the magnesium supplement makes sense for now. But if there's nothing wrong with me, why supplement?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why people take so many different kinds of supplements. It's kind of crazy. But a lot of, the medical doctors who are pushing, opiates and stuff like that and making tons of money as doctors to just get rich, now they can't push those opiates because there's all these laws and regulations. And so now,
Anybody who wants off of opiates should look at kratom.
yeah, exactly. Kratom's awesome. But anyway, so now these doctors are making their own supplements and writing their own nutrition books who are opiate drug dealers. And so you're starting to see like a huge flux of all these people being specialists, and they're really not. I do the same thing. Iodine is like one of my important things. I take Mercola's vitamin C, which is like the best on the market. And then I have a product that I really, really like. It's called Bone Up, and it has phosphorus and magnesium and some calcium and stuff in it. And I really like that product. I feel a lot better, when I take it. But those are, I think what the number one nutritional deficiency in the United States is magnesium. Number two, number two is B vitamins. And then because those are bacteria, B12 is a bacteria. And since we're not eating our food directly from the ground and the organic food we are getting is overly washed, all the bacteria, the beneficial nutrient bacteria is gone. And then the third one is vitamin C. So those are the top three, and all those vitamins do all the really, really important things in your body. I think magnesium has 140 processes all over the body. It deals with things all over in different kinds of systems and functions. But yeah, no, I'm like you. I don't take anything unless I need it. Okay. Anyway, that's it. That's all I'm going to pick your brain. So I'm going to stop the record. Thanks, Dr. Looney Time. And you can find him, just in case you want to follow him. He's on the Mad Doctor Time on minds.com. So you can find him there.
Yeah, I dropped my post from today for you. It was actually on kratom.
Oh, awesome. I'll put that up. So anyway, thank you, Mr. Time, and I'm stopping the record.